This channel started life as a visual novel style actual play channel of my Gundam campaign with MC. Hence the name of the channel, My Wife is literally the MC. Creating all those homebrew options for my Gundam campaign made me realize something. I've been making homebrew since my very first Final Fantasy VIII campaign back in 2015. So I switched it up and decided to make D&D homebrew for this channel instead. And thus, Husbando Homebrew was born, the show where I take pop culture to pen and paper. 3 years and 40 episodes later, I've built a respectable library of D&D homebrew. So in this video, we're diving into my top 10 most purchased homebrew creations and placing them in a tier list to help you decide which ones are perfect for your next D&D adventure. And the best part, I'll show you how to get each and every one of them for just $5. Howdy folks, and thank you for being here, and welcome to My Wife is the MC. I'm DMV, and I've been DMing and designing D&D homebrew since 2015. So these homebrews are ranked from number 10 to number 1, based on the sales numbers in our Ko-Fi shop. But instead of the usual S to D tiers, I want to take a more descriptive approach. After all, each player has a unique character fantasy they want to embody, and some homebrews might be a better fit when it comes to bringing those ideas to life. Here's how the tiers work. The plug-and-play tier is for creations that are easy to integrate in most tables. They have a broad appeal and can cater to a lot of character concepts beyond the original inspiration. The strong narrative flavor tier is for homebrews with a heavier focus on the character's story and inspiration. They also tend to be slightly stronger than usual. Finally, the experimental fun tier is for homebrews that really push the limits of D&D 5th edition. It might not be the best for purists, since these creations tend to get a "go play other systems" kind of reaction. But if you're open to trying something new, you'll find some really cool ideas that'll bring something interesting to your table. But before diving into the countdown, let me front load a bit and talk about the $5 thing I mentioned earlier. I'll share more details later, but here's the short version. I've opened up memberships. Joining the $5 tier gets you free access to my past, present, and future homebrews, plus a bunch of other great perks. So I hope you'll stick around to hear all about it. So, is everybody comfy at the table? Cause number 10 comes out swinging with Bayonetta. Bayonetta came out in February of this year, trailing right after the insanely popular Kamen Rider Gates, which we'll get to in a bit. This is one of the first warlocks I did for the channel, and I was experimenting with this faux 3D battle simulation style for the video. I thought it was really cool, and I was really proud of that video. Anyway, let's talk tiers. The Mistress Patron has elements of the Hexblade and a bit of Land Druid, while the Pact of the Weave covers Bayo's hair abilities. I personally like splitting up the features that way, because that means you can play as any other kind of warlock, like Celestial Warlock, and get the hair abilities separately. While it has fairly strong narrative flavor, I think it has enough flexibility to land squarely in plug and play. Number 9, Equilibrium. Coming in at number 9 is Equilibrium, an oldie but a goodie inspired by the 2002 Christian Bale cult classic. And this one has mechanics that turn a monk into a mathematical martial artist with guns. I even designed an optional rule to make its features intelligence-based rather than wisdom-based to stay true to the Grammaton cleric character. While its features are simple enough for the plug-and-play tier, I would argue that its design serves the character concept of John Preston's Grammaton cleric. I am placing the Way of the Gunkata in the strong narrative flavor tier. Number 8, John Wick. John Wick was kinda cursed when I made it back in 2023. I kept starting and stopping the design work cause, well, life hit hard. First I was hit with unemployment, and then when I finally found my groove, COVID knocked me out. But ultimately it helped me find some semblance of stability, at least at the time. It was even my first homebrew to use the new MS Word format, and the first double feature to have 2 archetypes inspired by one character. Mechanically, I heavily patterned it after the Battle Master, with a strong emphasis on grappling and resilience. And while both the Fighter and the Rogue subclass were designed with John Wick in mind, I think its features are flexible enough to fit any agent-type character. Plug and play tier. Number 7, Devil Forge Master. I love Netflix's Castlevania. It had a character concept I really wanted to bring to life, in the form of Hector's Flesh Artificer. When I first saw him create a demon, I thought to myself, man, if only there were an official setting book that could add him as a character option. But WotC's failure is just another homebrew opportunity. So, I did it myself. This subclass combines Hector's abilities from the Curse of Darkness game with the Innocent Devil mechanics, and his Netflix version through the macabre rituals baked into the features. It has some elements of the Battlesmith, but it leans more heavily into the partner creature aspect. The core feature lets you create your own demonic assistant from cadavers and carcasses. It's like its own mini-system within the subclass, which admittedly makes it a bit wordy, but I think it adds an engaging tactile layer to the gameplay. While I'm tempted to put this under experimental fun for the Innocent Devil features, the appeal of being a dedicated necromancer makes it a staple archetype that could land it in the plug-and-play tier. However, with its ritualistic mechanics and Hector's unique style in mind, the Devil Forge Master earns its place in the strong narrative flavor tier. Number 6. Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry. This series of homebrew options holds a special place in my heart. It all started with an origin option inspired by Nero from DMC4. It was then followed by a style-switching subclass for Dante, which I think is actually one of my best martial archetypes that I've done. I then came back to Nero and designed a subclass around his Devil Breakers, and ended the character options with the Dark Slayer archetype that focused on Virgil's motivated abilities. I've since polished up the original homebrew to make it more balanced and streamlined. The races are now a lot less broken, core character traits like the Devil Trigger have been converted into feats, and the subclass option for Dante, Virgil, and Deadweight have been given a well-deserved facelift. Mechanically, some individual subclasses might fit nicely into plug-and-play. But as a whole, this set's focus on iconic characters and their over-the-top style just screams strong narrative flavor for me. Number 5. Elden Ring. Number 5 is a bit of a cheat, since my Elden Ring homebrew is free, and technically more people purchase my Honor Among Thieves homebrew. But that one was just a bunch of small feats, while Elden Ring brings substantial mechanics that qualify as a full-on homebrew. The armament scaling homebrew is actually a much more polished version of what I initially released back in 2022. It introduces a new scaling system that lets you use multiple ability score modifiers to calculate your weapon attack roll bonus. You can even infuse your weapons with different elements similar to Elden Ring's infusions. I'm genuinely proud of this system, and I think it's a unique take on weapons mechanics that gives a lot more freedom in character creation and optimization. And while I didn't make a dedicated video for it, I'd love to revisit this homebrew to include ideas like Ashes of War, sorceries, and incantations. Maybe even add stuff like legendary armaments or great runes. Admittedly, it might add a bit of extra bookkeeping to your character sheet, but once you get past the learning curve, the freedom to optimize and experiment with different weapons makes it incredibly rewarding. This one's a no-brainer and definitely falls under the experimental fun tier. Number 4. Kaiju number 8. At first glance, you'd expect Kaiju number 8 to be a barbarian or druid. It's actually a warlock patron, and a bit of a weird one at that. I'm especially proud of how this one turned out because I managed to finagle an unarmed fighter with maneuvers on a warlock subclass, and somehow it's not too overpowered. The subclass focuses on the monster transformation and unarmed fighting features, while the Pact of the Vessel homebrew has some cool abilities like using your hit dice as spellcasting material components or letting you cast a self-buffing spell as a bonus action. At first glance, this might seem like a shoo-in for the strong narrative flavor tier, but I think the mechanics are robust enough for any monster within transformation concept to slot into the plug-and-play tier. Number 3. Dungeon Meshi. Dungeon Meshi, or Delicious in Dungeon, was one of my and Dempsey's favorite anime to come out this year. While the characters themselves don't have any standout abilities, it was the way the characters treated monster ecology and nutrition that really lit up my creativity. Technically, this is an Artificer subclass, but it's really more of a cooking system baked into the class features. It lets you gain buffs based on the ingredients that you gather and prepare, covering everything from preserving your kill to specific buffs like dragon meat reducing elemental damage. Mini systems as Artificer class features. Truly a husbando homebrew signature. This homebrew is probably the most viewed video on the channel so far, and it's extra special to me because it connected me with amazing creators like Game Master's Domain and The Ugly Goblin. A huge shout out to the OG Mallard cosplay battle for pointing them my way. As for tier placement, this homebrew is definitely not plug and play. If you're running a Dungeon Meshi style campaign, you could argue that it belongs to the strong narrative flavor tier. But personally, I think this falls under the experimental fun tier. The core mechanics are robust enough that you can even lift them out of the class and use them as a standalone cooking system for your game. Number 2, the Getter system. The penultimate homebrew is my very own Get in the Robot system. This supplement takes the medieval fantasy of D&D and converts it into a sci-fi mecha setting. It's a homebrew born from my love of the mecha genre and my undying determination to jam a giant robot square peg into 5e circle hole. Maybe I could have worded that better. Let's be real, 5e wasn't built with mecha in mind. But Getter bridges the gap for anyone who wants the thrill of piloting a Gundam without leaving behind the familiar D&D rule set. And boy did I get a lot of comments telling me to just play another system. Fun fact, Getter's foundations come from the Gundam campaign I've been running with MC. Of course, the version I used in that campaign was a bit more, jury-rigged. Getter got a serious upgrade when I turned it into a polished system, and now it's come full circle. Now I'm using Getter rules in the same Gundam campaign. Speaking of campaigns, shout out to Orion Senshi for putting Getter through its paces on his stream. He runs creative writing and live plays on his Twitch and YouTube channels, so go check him out. At its core, Getter treats your mecha like a second character sheet, complete with custom attributes, equipment, and energy management. It even has an Armored Core style garage system that lets you swap out mecha parts for even more customization. I am genuinely happy to see Getter ranked this high. For me, it's more than just a homebrew. It was a turning point. I was 9 months unemployed at the time, burned out from my previous job, and dealing with mounting debt. I wasn't in a good place. But finishing such a complex and detailed project gave me a renewed sense of confidence. When Getter started getting traction, it felt like a lifeline, not just for me, but for the channel too. It even brought us back from a 4-month hiatus. So this channel owes a lot to the Getter system, and I'm hoping to iterate on it next year. Much like the armament scaling homebrew, Getter is a supplement that builds on top of 5e system. And with its ambitious scope and experimental mechanics, it belongs in the experimental fun tier. Number 1, Kamen Riders. And finally, we come to the top-ranked, most purchased homebrew on My Wife is the MC, Kamen Rider. While there are several Kamen Rider homebrews in this tier list, I'm grouping them together under one umbrella. The channel's first Kamen Rider was Geats, released way back in January of this year. It marked the first major release after the channel's revival with Getter, and it quickly became a cornerstone of the channel. And man, you Rider fans really know how to show your love for the franchise. Beginning with Geats, Kamen Rider started a trend of long homebrew documents. These things are sprawling, detailed supplements just shy of being full-on gazetteers. What sets them apart is their setting-agnostic campaign elements, tools to help DMs create an entirely new campaign themed around Kamen Rider or integrate them into an existing one. They also have a wealth of character options and a lot of magic items. So far, we've released Geats, Double or W, and most recently, Build. And next year, we're kicking things off with even more build-inspired subclasses based on the main cast. Trust me when I say there are a lot of character options coming. I'm especially excited to dive into future projects for other series like Gaim, Forze, and even Gav once it's finished. The Kamen Rider homebrews are my love letters to the franchise, designed specifically for fans who want to bring Kamen Rider into their D&D tables. With their bespoke campaign elements and character-specific options, these homebrews land squarely in the strong narrative flavor tier. So, remember when I mentioned in the intro that I open up memberships and you can get everything for $5? Let's dive in. There are 5 levels in the Mallard Kingdom, from tourist to nobility. Tiers 1 and 2 are simple ways to show your support, and your generosity gets you discounts to all our homebrew and your name featured in the thank you section of our videos. But I think the tier that gets you the most bang for your buck is Tier 3, the Mallard Militia. Your $5 of support gets you free access to all our homebrews, including everything in this top 10 list. You also get early access to the homebrew way before they're featured in a video. Speaking of which, we'll highlight your name as part of the Mallard Militia in the thank you section. Finally, you get 5 times the voting power for upcoming content polls, like deciding which Kamen Rider I'll tackle next. If you're a super fan of the channel and you want to show it, Tiers 4 and 5 gets you even more perks. You get to playtest alpha versions of my homebrews, and even experimental ones that might not become a video. These tiers also get an extra special shoutout in our videos, twice the voting power of the Mallard Militia, and best of all, exclusive access to my commission slots. So if you've got a hyper-specific character concept you've been dreaming of, or you can't wait for me to homebrew Exade, you'll have the chance to make it happen once commission slots open next year. By the way, all tiers grant you access to my Discord community, which will launch in Q1 or Q2 of next year. So if any of this sounds exciting, we'd love for you to check out our membership tiers. Whether you're more comfortable with Ko-Fi or Patreon, both are available, so pick whichever one works for you. Nevertheless, we highly appreciate your support in any form. And even if memberships aren't for you, just liking and commenting on our videos goes a long way. This year has been nothing short of incredible. We hit 1,000 subscribers, made some amazing connections, joined a fight for extra life, and released some crazy in-depth homebrews.
To close out the year, we'd like to thank all these magnificent mallards you see on screen right now. And special thanks to these top mallards as of December 22. Yamo115221, RCW, Ken, Unstable Table Fables, Rue Avella, Chaos Sonic 1, Cosplay Battle, Piku, Rich, and the incredible Alexandria Halt. Also, big shout out to the first ever Mallard Royal Guard and OG fan of the channel, Cosplay Battle. Thank you all so much for your support. May your holidays be peaceful and your new year full of hope.